A few years ago, superhero nerds across the internet were positively electrified by the news that Michael Keaton had agreed to return to the role of Batman 3 decades after last playing the character. I have to admit, even my fan service hating ass was excited because even though I find the practice of belatedly trotting out legacy characters played by their beloved actors to be dubious at best, somewhere inside me, there is still a 9-year-old version of myself, and Michael Keaton is his Batman. As of the time I'm making this video, I have not seen the Flash movie, the film where Michael Keaton returns as Bruce Wayne/Batman, or at least the film where Michael Keaton returns as Bruce Wayne/Batman that Warner Brothers decided to release. So I won't have anything to say about that. Instead, I'm going to focus on Keaton's portrayal of the character in the 2 films that gave us superhero nerds reason to be excited about him reprising the role in the first place. 1989's Batman and 1992's Batman Returns. But first, a bit of history. You younger folks might not know this, but many of you who are my age and older will remember that back in the day, when Warner Brothers announced that Michael Keaton had been cast as Batman, most comic book nerds did not greet it as good news. Michael Keaton had been a star on film for most of the 1980s. His breakthrough came in 1982 when he co-starred alongside Henry Winkler in Night Shift, and that was followed by a series of leading roles in movies like Mr. Mom, Johnny Dangerously, and Gung Ho, though only Mr. Mom was a bona fide hit. Then, in 1988, he played Beetlejuice, which lifted him to the brink of superstardom and remains one of his signature roles. He's reprising that character, too, in a much-belated sequel currently scheduled to be released next year. But never mind that. This ain't called Best Beetlejuice Ever. Beetlejuice was the second feature film directed by Tim Burton. While it was in production, Burton was already developing what would be his third feature, Batman. When Burton announced that his follow-up to Beetlejuice would also star Michael Keaton as Batman, the reactions ran the gamut from intrigued and curious to confused to a nascent form of the entitled fanboy rage that would one day help to make social media into the unrelenting hellscape we all know so well. Hi, fellow hellscape residents! The negative reactions were reasonable at the time, up to a point. The anger and vitriol, not so much, but I get why both industry professionals and ordinary fans were puzzled by Keaton's casting. From the beginning, it was made clear to everyone who was interested that the Batman movie was going to present a darker, more serious take on the character than the Adam West TV series from the 1960s, which at the time was still how Batman was thought of in the popular imagination. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, depictions of Batman in his original medium of comic books had evolved away from the zaniness of the Silver Age and the outright comedy of the Adam West show and become grimmer and grittier. The new film was meant to reflect this more modern interpretation of Batman. But if that was the case, why, people wondered, cast Michael Keaton? Beetlejuice was a comedy, as was almost every other film in which Keaton had starred. His one dramatic role in 1988's Clean and Sober won him praise for his performance, but reviews for the film itself were more mixed, and Keaton had never done an action film. So, if the new movie was trying to show Batman as more of a Dark Knight than a comical caped crusader, why cast an actor who was known almost exclusively as a comedian? Keaton's casting, along with having Burton, who had also never made a straight action movie, his only other feature before Beetlejuice was Pee-wee's Big Adventure, at the helm, understandably made some folks a little worried about what kind of movie they were actually going to be getting when Batman opened in the summer of 1989. For many of those folks, not all of them, but if I had to guess, most of them, those worries went away once they actually saw Michael Keaton as Batman. The film's opening minutes let us know right up front that this Batman means business, and Michael Keaton is more than capable of handling that business. It begins with the mugging of a family, mother, father, son, a scene obviously meant to parallel the mugging that led to the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents. If you're not a comics fan and you don't know that going in, there is a flashback depicting the killing of the Waynes later on, only this time, no one dies. The muggers take the loot and head up on the roof to split it amongst themselves. As they do, they talk about the vigilante, or perhaps the creature that has been stalking criminals in Gotham as of late, the Bat. One of the muggers is skeptical, declaring there ain't no bat. But that, of course, is the cue for Batman to reveal himself and descend on these scumbags from an overhead ledge. One of the crooks fires his gun and Batman goes down, only to rise again and continue his slow but relentless pursuit. A well-placed kick and a flawless throw of a batarang later, and the muggers have been handled. Batman drags one to the edge of the roof, dangles him over the street, and as the crook begs for his life, whispers calmly, "I'm not going to kill you. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me." "What are you?" asks the crook. "I'm Batman," he answers, and Keaton's delivery of that simple line is so cool that almost every actor to play the character in live action since has been required to provide us with their interpretation of it. Now, my purpose here is not to critique 1989's Batman as a film. If you really want to know my opinion, I think it's not that great. But Michael Keaton's performance as Batman is another story. Keaton is one of the highlights of the film, along with the beautiful Gothic-inspired production design by Anton Furst and the instantly unforgettable score by Danny Elfman, and of course, Jack Nicholson's gleefully unhinged take on the Joker. Keaton's Batman is so influential that I think we sometimes forget just how influential it is. Virtually every subsequent performer who has played Batman in live action and in animation owes a debt to Michael Keaton. The low, raspy voice, the somber demeanor, the simple, economical body language necessitated by the limited range of motion afforded by Keaton's Batman costume, but adopted by several actors who inherited the role nevertheless. Michael Keaton invented how to play the modern, serious version of Batman. Every actor to play the character since has worked off of the template he set. Despite that undeniable influence, the quality of Keaton's performance while in the Batsuit is often undersold. I think this is due partially to how still and inexpressive his Batman is, and partially to the fact that the movie isn't really about Batman. The story happens around Batman, sometimes with his involvement, but he's not often at the center of it. So Keaton's acting while in the Batsuit is widely regarded as unremarkable, though there is some disagreement on that. There's far less disagreement over Keaton's performance out of the Batman costume as Bruce Wayne. That, the consensus seems to be, is where Keaton really shines. And I won't disagree with that. While I do think his performance as Batman is often underrated, I am definitely in the camp that believes Michael Keaton is a good Batman, but a great Bruce Wayne. But in order to fully appreciate Keaton's take on Bruce Wayne, it might help to let go of any preconceptions you have about how that character should be presented. The typical modern interpretation of the character holds that Bruce Wayne, that is, the public face of Bruce Wayne, the fabled wealthy playboy, is an affectation intended to make sure no one ever suspects that Bruce is secretly Batman. The Bruce that everyone except his closest friends and allies knows is brash, shallow, reckless, womanizing. But in Tim Burton and Michael Keaton's interpretation of the character, that Bruce is nowhere to be seen. In public and in private, Keaton plays Bruce Wayne as reserved, awkward around people. There's a sense of unease that never leaves him, as though he's constantly distracted by things known only to himself. When someone speaks to him, he seems to be only half listening. The impression created is that of a man who is slightly neurotic and also highly intelligent. Always thinking is Keaton's Bruce. Always uncomfortable, too. The only times when he seems truly focused and in the moment are when he's Batman, which I can't help but read as a meaningful performance choice. That projection of intelligence carries a lot of weight in the '89 Batman film, which, like I said, isn't really about Batman. Fans hoping to see the pulpier side of the character, investigating crimes, escaping from fiendishly contrived death traps, might be disappointed since he doesn't really do any of that. Batman does do a bit of detective work to figure out the details of the Joker's scheme to poison the people of Gotham, but that's mostly off-screen. By the same token, fans hoping for edge-of-your-seat action might feel shortchanged as well. There are a few fight scenes, a car chase, a plane crash, some explosions here and there, but this version of Batman isn't all that acrobatic, doesn't give us the sense that he's a master martial artist, and except for a few scenes where he's crashing through a skylight or reeling himself up or down on the end of a wire and grappling hook, mostly keeps his feet planted on the ground. What Keaton's Batman is smart and intense and dangerous. And while there is some basis for all of those facets of the characterization in the script, they are mostly generated and conveyed through Keaton's performance. Without Michael Keaton, this version of Batman would be as flat as the screens he was projected on in the summer of 1989. With Michael Keaton, investing him with that tense, erratic energy, this version of Batman is always watchable and occasionally riveting. Probably the best examples of this are found in a pair of closely related scenes, the first of which features Bruce out of costume. He's come to the apartment of his love interest, photojournalist Vicky Vale, played by Kim Basinger, to come clean and tell her that he is Batman. But his confession is interrupted by a visit from the Joker, who has developed an obsession with Vicky. To protect Vicky, Bruce tells the Joker a little story that ends with Bruce grabbing a fireplace poker, using it to smash a vase, then turning to the Joker and screaming, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." To which the Joker responds by saying, "Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?" He explains it's something he always says to people before he kills them. He just likes how it sounds. Then he shoots Bruce and leaves. Bruce is okay, though. He took the precaution of tucking a silver serving tray under his shirt before confronting the Joker. So there's a fun fact. Silver serving trays stop bullets. I wouldn't count on that one, though. I have a feeling that's only true in this movie. Speaking of things that are only true in this movie, hearing that "have you ever danced with the devil" catchphrase causes Bruce to realize that the Joker is the man who killed his parents when he was a child. Small world. The conflict between Batman and the Joker escalates until reaching a climax in the second of the two scenes I referred to a minute ago, when Batman confronts the Joker at the top of Gotham Cathedral. With Vicky, who the Joker has taken hostage, looking on, Batman is finally able to take out a lifetime of pain and rage on the man responsible for it, the murderer of his mother and father. In this scene, for the only time in the film, Keaton's Bruce Wayne and Batman become one. Having fought his way to the top of the cathedral through a series of goons, Batman makes his presence known by asking the Joker, "Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?" No longer the stoic, mysterious figure he's been for most of the film, now Batman speaks with his real voice, the voice of Bruce Wayne. And his lips curl and his eyes flash behind that heavy black cowl with all the ferocity Keaton can summon as he pulls the Joker in close and growls, "I'm going to kill you." And eventually Batman does kill him, tying a gargoyle to the Joker's ankle as he hangs onto a rope ladder dangling from a helicopter so that, inevitably, the Joker's grip gives out and he falls to his death at the foot of the cathedral. I'm not a fan of Batman killing his villains, or anyone else for that matter. I'm also not a fan of Batman using guns, and he does that in Tim Burton's films as well. Not handguns. They're mounted to the front of the Batmobile, but in my book they still count. But those elements, distasteful though they are, don't detract from Keaton's performance, which is excellent. Keaton's Batman Returns in the sequel... What was it called? If Keaton's first Batman movie isn't really about Batman, that is doubly true for Batman Returns. There are long stretches where Bruce/Batman's presence feels almost incidental. Despite that, I think Batman Returns is actually a better film. It's certainly a funnier film than its predecessor. In fact, I think the best way to enjoy Batman Returns is to approach it as a comedy. There's a sense of absurdism permeating the film that I think was missed by a lot of the critics and fans who complained that it was too dark back in 1992. I know I missed it the first time around, but give me a break, I was 12. Anyway, like I said, this isn't a movie review, but one of the main beneficiaries of Batman Returns leaning further toward the absurd is Michael Keaton. He still mostly plays it straight, in and out of the Batsuit, but he gets a few opportunities to show off the personality and comic timing that originally made him a star. Keaton has a few very funny exchanges with Michael Gough, who plays Alfred, including this one where he's so distracted by his research into the Penguin's criminal past that he spits out his Vichy-Soise, exclaiming, "It's cold!" But then Alfred explains that it's supposed to be cold, and after that, Bruce eats it without complaint. Or this bit, right out of a screwball comedy, where Bruce and Selina Kyle are making out on Bruce's couch when news breaks that the Ice Princess has been kidnapped from the Gotham City Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Bruce finds Alfred and asks him to make up some excuse why Bruce has to leave, so he can change into Batman and rush to the scene without hurting Selina's feelings. Alfred is only too happy to help, but when he attempts to make Bruce's apologies to Selina, she's rushing out the door herself because she, being Catwoman, don't you know, needs to get to Gotham so she can help the Penguin with the whole kidnapping plot. So, before Alfred can get out more than a word or two, Selina cuts him off and asks him to do the same thing for her that Bruce just asked Alfred to do for him. It's actually more of an Alfred bit than a Bruce bit. See, even in the gags, Bruce isn't the lead protagonist. Well, some of them, anyway. He does get this sick gag as Batman during a brawl with the Red Triangle Circus Gang, where he punches a hulking thug to no effect, only for the thug to look down and realize the punch was just a distraction so Batman could stuff a bomb in his pants. Then, grinning wickedly, Batman knocks the thug down and rounds a corner as the guy explodes behind him. Not a fan of Batman killing people, like I said, but the bit where that guy gets blown up is obviously played for a laugh and is so cartoonish that I can't really object to it. In fact, it almost always gets a chuckle out of me. It turns out some days you can get rid of a bomb. Batman Returns also has a fight between Batman and Catwoman with an exchange that I think qualifies as banter.
Somebody say fish? I haven't been fed all day.
Eat floor. High fiber.
That's okay, Keaton's Batman isn't really the bantery type anyway. Just to circle back to the Batman killing people thing, at the end of the movie, it seems like this version of Batman has decided that maybe killing people isn't okay after all. He does own a share of responsibility for the death of the Penguin, I suppose. He releases a small swarm of bats that causes the Penguin to stagger backwards through a window and fall into the pool of Arctic world some great distance below. But it's not like Batman pushed him on purpose. And when Catwoman is about to kill Max Schreck, Batman tries to convince her to turn Schreck over to the police instead. It doesn't work. She cooks him like a blackened tuna steak, but an effort was made. Batman doesn't kill the Penguin, directly anyway, and attempts to persuade Catwoman not to kill Max Schreck. He does kill that goon with a bomb in his pants, though, so maybe the rule Batman lives by in Batman Returns is no killing unless it's funny? I can live with that. I'll cut him some slack because I know he's a work in progress. By the next film in the series, when he's played by a different actor, his thinking on the subject has evolved to the point that he lectures Dick Grayson on how killing people is wrong, even if they killed your parents and you're just killing them back. Listen to the man, Dick. He speaks from experience. But I digress. Different Batman. Sort of. Michael Keaton's Batman only got 2 movies, of his own anyway, and then the franchise shifted into other directions. Tim Burton ceded the director's chair to Joel Schumacher, and Keaton took off the Batsuit to be replaced by Val Kilmer, who was then replaced by George Clooney. But of the 3 actors who played Batman in that Tim Burton-Joel Schumacher series of films, it's Michael Keaton who has remained foremost in the memories of most fans. It's easy to see why. He reinvented the role in live action for a new audience. He created a blockbuster Batman suitable for the big screen, a Batman we were meant to take seriously, mostly, and a Batman we were capable of taking seriously, mostly. Through his performance, he was able to imply depth and complexity in a version of the character which, as written, was honestly pretty flat. He defined the character for an entire generation of young fans, including yours truly. And that's why, as far as 9-year-old Steve is concerned, Michael Keaton will always be the best Batman ever.